How are you doing?
Yeah, really well, thanks, man. How are you?
Awesome. Pretty good. Pretty good. Definitely fascinated to talk to you about this movie because
Ah,
I feel like if even some whether someone loved it, hated it, was completely puzzled by it, like you want to
mm,
talk to the people who decided to make the movie because there's nothing about it that suggests like, oh, it was a good career choice or it paid really well or just it's clearly, oh, the actor in me needed to do this. And I'm just sort of
yeah.
curious, like when you see the script and you decide this is something I want to do, what is the choice? Like, why do you decide? Because we'll talk about it in a minute, but you pick very interesting things already in sort of a short period of time.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Like, I mean, with Wolf particularly, I think the sort of very simple, impossible nature of Jacob's circumstance, I kind of found like fascinating. It's so simple.
Yeah,
He is a wolf trapped in a man's body, and like then like that is such a sort of simple sentence that, but the kind of possibilities of how you unpick that, what that means, and then also figuring out right how do you express that, and the possibility of like the lengths that you can go in terms of how wolfish is it, like what
yeah,
form does the wolf take, like what do we do with that, and how do we find that. And so that already was a very inspiring question because it just puts your sort of mind and body and you kind of like juices flowing in terms of like how do we do this. And then I watched Natalie's first film, which I absolutely love, called Nocturnal, and really kind of was excited by her and believe in her as a director. And then on top of that was that it was specified as well that we got to work with Terry Notary,
mm.
who's an amazing movement coach. And I don't know if you've seen that film, The Square.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the scene with the guy who won't stop being an ape in the
yeah.
donor's dinner. That's Terry, and
Mm.
he also works in Planet of the Apes, and is a bit of a master and an amazing mind. And I remember seeing that scene and being so blown away when I watched that film in the cinema, um, in the square. It kind of was like this project felt
Yeah,
like a larger version of that, something so strange. And when a strangeness enters into a kind of socialized world, and what it does to you and what it does to the people in it, like I think it's just a possibility of the project. It's by no means, as you say, like a kind of a surefire
yeah,
hit or a home run or anything, but the possibility of the process is what drew me to it.
totally. And I mean, yeah, I can even imagine just I told my girlfriend what it was about when I was watching the screener, and she was like, "So it's comedy, right?" I was like, "I don't think so." And as I
Yeah,
watched it, I reported back. I was like, "No, it's pretty serious. Like, there's a laugher too, but
yeah.
it is
It's pretty
serious."
sad. It's like it's
Yeah,
quite sad, I
yeah,
think, as
exactly.
well.
It's much more of a tragedy, and I would imagine that's the same thing that you get when even just in conversation, mom, dad, what am I making? Oh, making this movie where I'm going to be like someone stuck in a wolf's body. Like, oh, cool. That's like, is it a Will Ferrell movie? Like, no, it's not. It's not that.
Yeah,
But
it's all of that. It's like kind of figuring out those, because as you say, it's quite light. It's kind of quite a funny sort of
yeah, the tone
quippy
is
thing to talk
so
about.
easy to get wrong. I think in this movie.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing of then like there was another film that Natalie kind of I asked Natalie of films like for reference, not to be derivative, but just in
Yeah,
terms of like inspiration and kind of tonal research. And one of the films that she names was Border. Do you know the Swedish
yeah,
film?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense actually.
And just but when I watched that, I was blown away and kind of really inspired by when people commit to strangeness, like, and but not playing strange for the sake of strange, but just being very serious and respectful of a pretty out there situation, and and the kind of the way in which I think that can actually then hopefully comment or offer up feelings or some sort of comment on society, because it's sort of feel when something's safe enough removed, I think you can then for it, you could then you can then apply yourself to it in terms of even if most people might not identify as a wolf, there might be that kind of, but any feeling of displacement or not discomfort in their own skin or in a situation, I think that sort of that kind of indirect parallel, I think, is rings true to stuff that we've all felt to varying
Oh, yeah,
degrees
that's
without a
yeah,
lot.
that's how this movie succeeds. It's not in, oh, I also feel like a wolf or I also feel like a bird, because I think that's where you get the people who are wise and the silly. That's where you get those people. But as opposed to the intent, which is much more, I don't feel at home in this world. I feel out of place in my body. There's something off, and
Yeah,
either know exactly what it is, but I can't fix it, or I don't know what it is and I can't fix it. And that's where I think the effectiveness is, because otherwise it would be, even if it wasn't silly, still the same movie, but if everyone wasn't taking it from that perspective, it would be like an actor's assignment. Because every actor
Yeah,
wants to pretend they're an animal, and that's fun, but it's not really fun for us to watch for 2 hours. But
yeah,
finding the
yeah,
like the emotion there was surprisingly effective, because I think, I would always understand why like you and Lily would want to make it, because of course this is like everything we want to do as an actor. But to make
yeah,
it enjoyable for the audience is that's where I think your director is so on point with what to tell you to watch, because that's where it's supposed to feel sad and off and out of place, but never like weird per se.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Like I think you, as a director, Natalie sort of guides you. She uses the story. She's got such a beautiful story that kind of holds this kind of conundrum, basically.
Yeah,
Because otherwise you say you're just watching actors being rather self-indulgent, being animals the whole time.
totally. And I mean, it fits also with I think, you've made more movies than I think people realize, but like of the few that have sort of broken through for sure and are what I would imagine the next script is in reference to, because that's what I imagine happens a lot. You make something that people see, you get 10 more of those sent to you, and you have to sort of filter through those. Like, I did a war movie. I'm good. In fact, I've done more than one if you pay attention, but okay. Um, you do
Yeah,
pick sort of the hardest version of it, which I think is interesting. It's very easy to pick the one with the, it pays more, or it's got this filmmaker or someone's in it. But, Captain Fantastic is the most interesting version of that story. 1917 is probably the hardest version of that story. This is the most sort of on the ground version of that story. Like, what is it that makes you want to make those movies, as opposed to like someone telling you like, oh, this is the movie star movie, you should make this movie.
I think. I mean, like if they're just the scripts and projects that interest me most. I think
Yeah.
you give yourself, it becomes your all. Like you jump off into a bubble as you're doing it, and you've really got to believe in what it offers up. It doesn't necessarily offer an answer in terms of what it's talking about, but what it offers up is like a real legitimate stab at it.
Mhm.
And and then when you kind of, it takes like weeks and months of your time, and it takes you away from your loved ones, and and that it's kind of you've got to commit yourself to it, I think. And you can only commit to something that you're like genuinely like intrigued by, and sort of like baffled by, and kind of in love with. And so that's why, I don't know, I guess I'm drawn to those things, because yeah, they're what hold you. You think, right, this is all I want to do. This is what I want to go towards. I can't think of a better way to sort of like, uh, a better project to give myself to, like, because you're all, yeah, everyone's just like a cog within the story,
Yeah.
within the sort of the process as well. So like, if this thing's bigger than you, you've kind of, it's got to be something that you believe in.
Yeah. And I think people always know it when someone's not there for those reasons. And listen, everyone's got bills to pay, and I never begrudge someone who's like, I'm gonna go to Bulgaria for 2 weeks and make $10 million. Like, I wish
Yeah,
I could do that. That sounds great. But
yeah,
I think that speaks to what you're saying. Like, they're not one of the cogs then. Like, because that's
yeah,
the like, I'm gonna show up for 2 weeks, you're gonna shoot someone else from behind, I'm only shooting my close-ups, like as opposed to like you going, I want to figure out Ned Kelly. Maybe I
yeah,
can, but like everyone involved is going to be in support of, we're going to try to figure out Ned Kelly. And like they've made Ned Kelly movies and they haven't worked. Let's make one that works. Like there's something, I don't know, just I think people root for you to succeed then. And
yeah,
they may not make, $100 million, but that's where you develop your like following of, oh, I want to see what George does next, because he's going to make a weird movie, but he's going to be invested in it, and they're going to be made with interesting filmmakers. Like the ingredients are building in a way that's really interesting.
well, that's really kind of you. I think, yeah, but it's just that thing of, yeah, I think you can kind of feel, the intention behind something,
Yeah.
and whether it kind of hits home or not is like, but you can sort of, but you can, I think you can feel the intent, and that's the thing of, even if something's really successful, if you can feel that no one's really working that hard at it, it kind of makes that success a bit thin as well. But
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's all kind of maybe thinking beyond. I think it's just like, it simplifies to like Does this fascinate me? Yes. Okay. I'm in, and that's it. And then it was sort of the process will unravel to be what it is, because so much of Wolf was, in the way that the wolf came about in Jacob's character. Like, I had no concept or had even considered before working with Natalie over quite a period of time, and working with Terry as well, our movement coach, and working with Lily. Like, it wasn't until working with people that it becomes the thing that it does. And I think sometimes you almost forget that. We could talk about it in hindsight.
I mean, obviously the movie is taking it seriously, but when you're doing it for maybe the first time, like the first time you and Lily have the like sort of almost like feeling each other out, it's almost, it
Yeah.
becomes like a mating scene in a way. But like, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's in the back of your mind like, I hope I don't feel stupid the first time, because that's just natural. Like, no one's seen
Yeah.
me do this before. It's been me and Terry, we've practiced, but now there's going to be 20 people in the room. How do I, like, is there just a little bit of a have to get out of my own head and commit to like, everyone trusts that this is going to work, I just have to go along with it? Or does it take a few times to sort of work out the kinks of, okay, it seems silly, I know it's not silly, but it seems silly?
I think it's a mixture of, like, I think the times when it felt a tiny bit silly was so far before we kind of got to
Hmm.
being in the room with everyone else, that it wasn't an issue then. They were
Yeah.
sort of, those silly moments were kind of quite a private,
Yeah.
thing. But that said, I think that's credit to, like the work, like Lily, for instance. Like, Lily was so amazing and kind of inspiring in her enthusiasm, because you're like, I never ever felt for a second like I was being judged.
Yeah.
If any sort of judgment ever entered into, you know, the kind of community that was the production, it would be the people who kind of started to judge the material. Like, because everyone was so sort of like, yeah, this is a very serious thing. Like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you try and do it? Like, sort of,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, like, why wouldn't you give your best effort to be an animal? Like, why don't you crawl more? Like, well, what about this? How? It was never, everyone was sort of taking it so seriously that, yeah, it was kind of inspiring you to kind of to meet that all the
Yeah.
time. And I think, again, that's where, like, but that's also a personal taste. I think some that wouldn't be for everyone. And it's just, when I saw that scene in the square,
Yeah.
I was like, that was one of the best pieces of cinema I've seen in a long, long time. And
Mhm.
when I watched Border, I thought it was absolutely amazing. And some people just won't feel like that,
Oh, yeah.
but I think that's because of a personal taste. I was kind of like, all right, I'm up for, for trying something equivalent.
Exactly. Like, it's turned a little to the left or a little to the right on the dial, but like, oh, cool, that's the mood I'm in. And I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
that's what I think makes this interesting. Like you said, everyone was very into, let's do it as real as we can. Like, we got the silliness out of the way the first time we tried it in private
Mm,
just to practice, and that's what makes these interesting. Because I think I had a filmmaker, an actor, tell me a story about two other actors they were working with, very very famous actors. They work so differently, they couldn't make it work the first couple of takes for a while, because just
mm.
they work so differently, they interpret the material so differently. It wasn't that they didn't like each other or didn't get along, but like, this first take would be, they're in two different movies, and none of them were the movie the director was making. And like,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you know what the movie is, you're like, wow, that makes no sense that would be the case, because when you saw it, it looked perfect. But that's the
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
It took them two, three, four times. And I think, like what you're saying, having the sense of, I'm in the right place to try this, I'm going to do it as many times as it takes until you know I never per se feel like a wolf, but I
mm,
know that my character does. Because it's
yeah,
not, that's like, I think that's the interesting delineation. Like, you're not like, you didn't go around for 6 months pretending to be a wolf and like get arrested in the streets, but you found the place where you feel like you've found the person who does this. And that
yeah,
it shows in the movie.
yeah, yeah. And but also, that's a mixture of, like, a kind of, I think it's always an amalgamation of, like, you find that in the character, and that's through working with Natalie, and like, we workshop, like, we had 1 week of rehearsals before the rest of the company kind of arrived, and Natalie and I just used to go on long, long walks and just improvise and just talk through the backstory. She just asked me, interview me as Jacob, and anything I didn't know, I'd have to think of, and then we'd sort of go, okay, does that make sense, and this and that, and we sort of built this man before the wolf. And then also, it's coupled with, again, you have experiences in your own life where you sort of go, oh God, I don't feel like I fit in the way that I want to, or you feel kind of ill at ease with yourself, and then it's kind of taking that feeling and ramping it up tenfold, or whatever it is, it's a kind of, yeah, an amalgamation of your own experience of an equivalent and then investing in the idea of the character.
Yeah. And I think that's why the movie works as we wrap up, because I'm sure you've got more of these to do. You don't have to buy into even the animal aspect of it. Obviously, everyone involved wants you to, but as long as you are aware of what this movie is trying to talk about, it doesn't do it in like a hammer over your head way. It does it in a very even keeled way. So it can approach you from sort of more than one angle. And that's just to sort of wrap up why I think it works so well for you, especially is you understand the wolf aspect, but you also just buy this character that you wish you could figure out what the problem is, because he can't figure out what the problem is. And this is the solution, but it's clearly not the solution to anyone else but him. And then when he obviously finds some other people who it's the solution to, it's such compelling acting to watch.
Oh, well, thank you. And I think that's, yeah, if it holds you, that's the best thing, because it's sort of, yeah, it's such a unique piece. And I'm just very proud of all the, to be a part of the team, because it's such a, I think it's, yeah, it's a unique, it's a strange film. It's not, and yeah, so that's very kind of you to say, and I'm pleased it came across in that way.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for doing this. I look forward to the next weird one, because you are excellent at the weird ones. So let's keep that up. But yeah, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, really lovely to talk, Joey. Yeah, take care.